What's good, y'all? So there was an arrest made related to the Nolan Wells case, but having nothing to do with finding out what actually happened to Nolan. It was a judge of one of the boys, Warren, who was threatened by a man, and they tracked him down in no time flat. IP address, you know how easy that is to track. In addition to that, everybody has seen by now, good old Ofc Tatum, fake Ofc Tatum, going on Nancy Grace and looking like that which he makes fun of.
What?
A deceptive Negro.
I don't know the name of it. It's an equivalent of a lie detector test. It's a different methodology. I don't believe it was a polygraph test. I believe they took other stressors in order to analyze if the people were telling the truth or not.
Did they take a polygraph would be no.
The irony cannot be lost. She caught him out there. He started yes ma'aming and started trying to talk his way out of a paper bag and couldn't even do it. Using the word semantics in the wrong frame of reference, when semantics just means similar meaning, he tried to attribute a polygraph to something that doesn't mean a polygraph. And Nancy got him.
Got him. We fucking got him. Right where we want.
D.L. Hughley has been doing a good enough job of holding this dude's feet to the fire. We ain't got to go really too deep into that now, do we, at this point?
Yourself the job you used to have. You're not an officer anymore. You were a football player who failed at being a football player. You didn't make the team, so you became an officer. That wasn't working out, so you became an influencer. You talked about emotion. What is more emotional than this?
The word.
You cried for a white dude who the people didn't even think you worthy to speak at his funeral. You said you wouldn't cry for your son, but you cried for him. That's not emotion? You talked out the way Benjamin Crump talks.
Just want to blame white folks. And so I go out there because I know that lame Al Sharpton and Mr. I can't read Benjamin Crump is just race hustling, y'all.
You talked about how those boys are innocent. You had proof. Now you talked to them for 2 days, and now all of a sudden you know if they're guilty. You know if they're innocent. You know that. Your name is your moniker is Officer Tatum, not Detective Tatum. You didn't make your way to detective. You're an influencer who says what white people want you to say. And don't you find it interesting that they chose to speak to you, and they chose to speak to you for the same reason that you're a conservative, for the same reason Turning Point did, because you're safe. They know you're a black man who'll do what he's told.
This dude's influence has been so strong, though, that TMZ is actually leaning into his investigative efforts as opposed to law enforcement. And you got a YouTuber, prominent YouTuber, went on TMZ and challenged what was being presented.
Hey, this is Trent Out Loud, YouTuber. I think the judge threats and the Benjamin Crump defamation lawsuit is just a distraction. I think it's incredibly telling that a white woman goes out and shows us the threats she's getting, and within days there is an arrest, but there has been zero arrest when it comes to the Nolan Wells case. Do you have any idea how many threats Christine has gotten? How come there's nobody arresting for the people that are threatening her?
Well, no, listen, you first have to determine if there's foul play, right? And I don't know that they've determined that yet. So you don't go out and start arresting people until you know, A, if there's foul play, and B, who did it. But just because there hasn't been doesn't mean there's not a real investigation behind.
Now that right there was a quite linear response. The man brought out 2 points. He just stuck to the one to make sure that there's no foul play before there's an arrest. When he was referring to the mom, as we spoke about, why didn't you use the same techniques to track down the people that are getting at her?
Agreed. But now let's talk about that picture that you showed up of the boat. We got that picture from Officer Tatum, former Officer Tatum. How do we know when that picture was taken? We have no metadata. We have no proof. How do we know that? And also,
well, no, but what the video? It's not a pic. We're talking about.
Well, he put out pictures and video. But
I know, but the video, we can align the video with the distress call, and he wasn't on that boat.
Yeah, but Harvey, how do you know? Has former Officer Tatum, has he provided you guys with the metadata? Do you know 100% when that video and those pictures were taken? Can you confirm to me right now that it was taken on July the 4th?
That's what we have concluded based on everything we've looked at, metadata, talking to people, and aligning it with the distress call. Yeah. Now, look, anything is possible. I'm certainly not saying it wasn't foul play because I don't know. It's just, I think, jumping to conclusions at the beginning and starting to point fingers at people without really knowing. It may be fair, but what if it's really unfair and you're kind of tarnishing people who really shouldn't be tarnished? Shouldn't that be a concern?
I think if anybody who jumped to conclusions first was the Mississippi officers that jumped to conclusions 1 hour after finding his body and said, no evidence of foul play. They jumped to conclusions, not us.
Well, I think he did a solid job. He represented himself well, brought out some good points. For them to act like there's not a historical context to this, like, so when these situations happen, they want to handle it like it's in a vacuum. But with everything else, there's a historical context. Like, they will celebrate their history forever. They'll never let you forget. We just celebrated 250 years in Philly. You never can forget, right? But this one's supposed to be in a vacuum when that particular state has a history. So skepticism is going to be built in based on prior behavior. And so for the young man to point out that really to jump into conclusions with him to clear the slate without an investigation, and now here we are where the skepticism was going to be there anyway, and now it's ratcheted up. You know what I mean? Anyway, man, let's end this with the enjoyment of Nancy Grace doing what she did to you know who. Appreciate y'all tuning in, man.
Have the friends taken polygraphs?
Well, from my understanding, all but I believe one took a polygraph, and from what was told to me that they all passed, and all of the ones that took a polygraph took one without a lawyer. And so, and they cooperated with law enforcement. So from my understanding, everybody took a polygraph test. Why do you say that's
from what you understand? Did they tell you they took a poly and passed?
Yes, ma'am. They told me that they did it. I wasn't there. So that's what I'm saying from my understanding. They told me that all the boys except one, which is Warren, I believe, took a polygraph test. All of them did not have lawyers and did it and cooperated with police. Warren also cooperated with police. I just believe he didn't take a lot to take the test, but Warren is the young man that I interviewed. So according to what they told me, they all took a lot to take test and passed. And it's an equivalent of a lot to take the test. It's not a traditional lot to take test, but it's the same theology of trying to get to if a person is lying. I don't know the name of it. It's an equivalent of a lot to take the test. It's a different methodology. I don't believe it was a polygraph test. I believe they took other stressors in order to analyze if the people were telling the truth or not.
Did they take a polygraph would be no.
Well, yeah, I think it could be semantics because they took a test to analyze whether or not they were being truthful in their statements, and that certified test, they passed it. It just wasn't considered a traditional polygraph. I think it's a more advanced way of doing it.
Brandon Tatum. Hold on.